There is a photograph in a family album in Rio de Janeiro. The album sits on the third shelf of a wooden cabinet in a small apartment in Copacabana. The cabinet was built in 1958. The album was added to it in 1989. The photograph was taken in March of 1972, on a stretch of beach between Lemmy and Arpoador, on a day when the sky was the color of old paper and the wind was coming in from the southeast. 3 men are standing in the photograph. 2 of them are smiling. The third is not. The man who is not smiling is on the left. He is 33 years old. He is 6 feet and 1 inch tall. He weighs 198 pounds. He is wearing a white linen shirt, unbuttoned to the 3rd button, and beneath that shirt, on the curve of his right collarbone, there is a healed scar. The scar is small. It is the shape of a crescent moon. It is the color of old leather. The 2 men beside him do not have scars. The 2 men beside him are also fighters, also part of a family that has produced fighters for 3 generations. But they do not have scars like this one. This scar did not come from a competition. This scar did not come from an academy mat. This scar came from a wooden floor on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse on Cumberland Road in Kowloon Tong, Hong Kong, at exactly 4:23 p.m. on October 11th, 1971. Beneath the photograph, written in pencil, in the careful Portuguese handwriting of the man's mother, are 2 words, voltou diferente. He came back different. He came back from a trip that lasted 6 days. He came back with 1 suitcase, 1 black belt with 4 white stripes, 1 leather notebook, and 1 scar. He did not tell his cousins what happened in Hong Kong. He did not tell his uncle. He did not tell the academy. For the next 11 years, he taught 1 specific drill to 34 senior students, and not one of those students ever learned where the drill came from. He died in 1994. The notebook was found under his bed. Inside the front cover, in pencil, in handwriting that was not his, were 11 words. This is the story of those words, and the 47 seconds that put them there. To understand what happened on Cumberland Road on October 11th, 1971, you have to understand what kind of family produced the man with the scar, and what kind of family does not send its quiet ones into the light. In 1971, the Gracie family was already a legend in Brazil. The legend had been built across 2 generations, first by the small man in São Paulo, who had refused to lose, and then by his sons and nephews, who had refined what he refused into a complete system. By 1971, the family academy on Figueiredo Magalhães Street in Copacabana was the place where, if you arrived from anywhere in the world believing you knew how to fight, you would discover within 4 minutes that you did not. The family had a tradition. They called it the desafio, the challenge. Any man could walk into the academy and ask for a match. Most men, when they reached the door, did not walk through it. The men who did walk through it usually left within an hour, sometimes on their own feet, and sometimes not. The family did not chase reputations. The family let reputations come to them. But the family also had something the public did not see. The family had Reinaldo. Reinaldo Gracie Mendes was not the most famous name in the family. He was not Helio. He was not Carlson. He was not on the magazine covers, and he was not on the television demonstrations. He was the cousin who trained 6 hours a day in the back room of the academy, the one who did not compete in public events, the one the family sent when they needed a real answer rather than a public one. He had a 4-striped black belt under Carlos. He had 47 closed-door academy matches. He had not lost any of them. His specialty was the takedown into the rear mount. He could execute it, against a trained grappler, in under 6 seconds. The family called him, quietly and without affection, O primo quebra pessoas, the cousin who breaks people. He had broken 3 black belts' arms in the 18 months before October 1971. He had not done it from cruelty. He had done it because the men did not tap, and his system did not allow him to release a position before the opponent's body told him the fight was over. He was 32 years old in October of 1971. He spoke Portuguese, broken English, and 4 words of Cantonese that he had taught himself from a phrase book purchased at a bookstore in Ipanema. He had decided, 8 weeks earlier, that he needed to travel to Hong Kong. The reason was a short film. In August of 1971, in a private screening room in São Paulo, a 35mm print of a Chinese martial arts film had been shown to a small audience of fighters and journalists. The film was Tang Shan Da Xiong, the Big Boss. The lead actor was a man named Bruce Lee. Reinaldo sat in the 3rd row. He watched the film once. He stayed in his seat. He watched it again. He He stayed in his seat. He watched it a third time. When he left the screening room at 1 a.m, he walked back to his hotel without speaking to anyone. He wrote a letter that night in Portuguese on the hotel stationery. The letter contained one sentence. Não acredito no que estou vendo. Permita-me confirmar. I do not believe what I am seeing. Permit me to confirm. I do not believe what I am seeing. Permit me to confirm. He sent the letter through a Brazilian businessman who exported coffee to Macau. The letter took 6 weeks to reach Bruce Lee's hands. Bruce Lee replied on September 28, 1971, through the same channel. The reply was a single sheet of paper. On the paper was a date, October 11th, a time 4 p.m, an address, Cumberland Road, 3rd floor, Kowloon Tong. No other words. Reynaldo bought his ticket the next morning. He landed at Kai Tak Airport on the afternoon of October 9th, 1971. The airport in those days came in low over the rooftops of Kowloon City, close enough that you could see the laundry on the lines and the children looking up from the alleys, and the descent had a way of making a man feel small even before he stepped off the plane. Ronaldo did not look small. He stood at the immigration counter with his single suitcase and his single document folder, and he answered the officer's questions in the broken English he had been practicing for 2 months. He was here for tourism. He would be staying 6 days. He had no business contacts in Hong Kong. The officer stamped his passport. He walked out into the humidity of an October evening in Kowloon, and he did not slow his pace for any of it. He checked into the Empress Hotel in Tsim Sha Tsui, $7 a night. The room had 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 window facing an air shaft, and a small writing desk. He placed his suitcase on the floor. He placed the leather notebook on the desk. He placed the 4-stripe black belt, still wrapped in the white cloth his cousin had given him in 1968, in the top drawer of the dresser. He did not unpack anything else. He walked Nathan Road for 3 hours that first evening. He watched the way the people moved. He noted, with the careful eye of a man trained to see weight transfer in opponents, that the locals walked with their weight slightly forward, different from Brazilians, who walk with their weight in the hips. He ate once, rice and steamed fish, at a small restaurant near the corner of Haifeng Road. He drank water. He did not drink alcohol. At 11 o'clock that night, Hong Kong time, 8 in the morning in Rio, he placed a telephone call from the hotel lobby. The call lasted 4 minutes. He spoke to his cousin. The only sentence from that call that was ever recorded in his notebook, dated October 9th, was the sentence his cousin said to him at the end. Volte com a verdade. Come back with the truth. He slept 4 hours. On October 10th, he did not approach Cumberland Road. He went there. He found the building, a 4-story converted warehouse, grey concrete, with a small wooden sign above the 3rd floor window that was not in any language he could read. He did not enter. He found a cafe across the street. He ordered tea. He sat in the window seat. He stayed in that seat for 5 hours and 40 minutes. He watched the building. He counted the people who entered and exited. He noted the times. At 9:12 in the morning, a man in a dark grey jacket entered the building carrying nothing. The man walked evenly on both feet. He turned his head a half-second slower to the left than to the right, a residual habit, Reynaldo recognized, of a man who had taken a serious injury to the lower back and was protecting it without realizing he was still protecting it. The man was Bruce Lee. At 7:48 in the evening, the same man exited the building, same jacket, same empty hands, same slow half-second of the head to the left. He turned south on Cumberland Road and walked toward Waterloo Road without looking back. Reynaldo paid for his tea. He returned to the hotel. He wrote 4 pages in his notebook. He drew 6 diagrams. He went to sleep. What he did not know, what he could not have known, was that on the same 2 days, on the 3rd floor of that grey concrete building, Bruce Lee was also preparing. For 9 days, Bruce had been studying a 47-page document. The document had been obtained through Filipino contacts in Manila, a translated the hand-copied summary of articles that Helio Gracie had published in the newspaper O Globo across the years 1955 to 1958. The document described, in Helio's own words, the structural philosophy of the family's ground system. Bruce had read the document 4 times. He had marked 1 paragraph in pencil. The paragraph was about the takedown, about the moment when a stand-up exchange becomes a ground exchange, and the paragraph contained 1 assumption that Helio Gracie had not realized he was making. The assumption was this, that the ground is the destination, that the path to the ground belongs to the man who takes you there. Bruce had read that paragraph and he had drawn a single circle around one word, destination, and he had made a decision. He would not resist the takedown. He would arrive on the ground earlier than expected, at an angle the system did not anticipate, in a position the map did not contain. He would lose the first 3 seconds of the fight on purpose. The next 4 would not belong to the Gracie family. October 11th, 1971. 4 p.m. The room on the 3rd floor was 40 feet by 22 feet. The floor was teak polished with one slight dip near the western wall, where the building had settled in the 17 years since the warehouse had been converted. The ceiling was high, 14 feet, with 2 industrial fans turning slowly. The windows along the south wall were open. The temperature was 27 degrees Celsius. The humidity was 81%. There was the smell of jasmine tea from a pot that was warming on a small electric ring near the door, and there was the distant sound of a tram bell on Waterloo Road. Reynaldo arrived at 3:58. He climbed the 3 flights of stairs at the same pace he had climbed all stairs in his life. He reached the landing. The door was open. He stepped through. Bruce Lee was standing in the center of the room. He was wearing black training pants and a thin white shirt. He was barefoot. His hands were at his sides. He was looking at the door. Reynaldo stopped 4 meters inside the room. He bowed from the waist, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu etiquette, 90 degrees, eyes down. It was a sign of respect to a host. Bruce bowed lower. It was the Cantonese gesture for a guest in one's home. Neither man spoke. Reynaldo set his bag against the wall. He removed his sandals. He walked to the center of the room, and he stopped 1.5 meters from Bruce Lee. He looked at Bruce's eyes. He noted that Bruce's eyes were not on his face. They were on his right hip, the hip from which the takedown would be initiated. He noted that Bruce's weight was on his back foot. He noted that Bruce's shoulders were lowered exactly 1/2 inch from his neutral standing posture. He stepped forward. He shot the single leg takedown, seconds 0 to 3. The entry. The shot was clean. It was the same shot Reynaldo had used in 47 previous matches. The forward step, the level change, the right hand reaching for the inside of Bruce Lee's left knee, the left hand sweeping behind to hook the calf. The motion was textbook. It was the motion that had ended 17 fights inside of 6 seconds. It did not end this one. Seconds 3 to 8. The fall that was not a fall. Bruce did not sprawl. Bruce did not back away. Bruce did not defend. Bruce dropped, but he did not drop the way Reynaldo expected. He did not drop onto his back. He did not drop into guard position, with his hips open and his legs ready to hook. He dropped at an angle, 27 degrees rotated from the line of Reynaldo's shot, and he landed on his right hip, facing the exposed left flank of the man who had just taken him down. Reynaldo's training required 1.4 seconds to read this position and adjust. He had 1.2, seconds 8 to 19. The inverted hip. Reynaldo's takedown momentum, which had been built across his entire body to plant his knee on Bruce's chest, now had nowhere to go. The chest was not there. The chest was rotated away. Reynaldo's right knee, descending at full force, found empty floor. Bruce hooked Reynaldo's left ankle with his right calf. It was not a leg lock. It was a leverage point. It was a single small fulcrum, applied at the exact moment Reynaldo's weight crossed the center line of his own balance. Reynaldo's body, which had been falling forward to mount Bruce's chest, now fell forward into nothing. He passed over Bruce. He landed on his right shoulder. The teak floor was polished, but it was not smooth. There was an exposed nail head near the western wall, where the floor had been repaired in 1969. Reynaldo's right collarbone struck the floor 12 inches from that nail. His shirt tore. His skin tore. The blood that came was not a great deal of blood. It was enough. It was the crescent shape of the scar that would still be visible on a beach in Rio de Janeiro 5 months later. Seconds 19 to 31. The reversal. Reynaldo recovered in 3 seconds. He was trained. He was professional. The shoulder did not stop him. He rolled. He established his base. He prepared to pull guard, to invite Bruce back to the ground where his system was built. Bruce was not on the ground. Bruce was standing. Reynaldo looked up. The man who had just been beneath him was now above him. His hands were at his sides. His weight was on his back foot. His eyes were not on Reynaldo's face. They were on Reynaldo's right hip, the hip from which the next attack would be initiated. Reynaldo had never been here before. In every match he had ever fought, his opponent had stayed where Reynaldo had put him. His opponent had defended from the position he had been placed in. The system had been built across 3 generations on this assumption. The ground is the destination, and the man who arrives there must answer the man who put him there. But Bruce had not been put on the ground. He had chosen to arrive on the ground. He had chosen to leave the ground. He had not asked permission, and he had not given any. Seconds 31 to 42. The choice. Bruce did not attack. He waited. Reynaldo had 3 options under Gracie doctrine. He could stand up. He could pull guard. He could invite Bruce down. All 3 required Bruce to cooperate. All 3 required Bruce to follow the script of the system Reynaldo had been raised inside. Bruce did not cooperate. He stood. He breathed. He watched. 11 seconds passed. In those 11 seconds, Reynaldo Gracie Mendez, the cousin who broke people, the man with 47 matches and no losses, the quiet test the family sent when they needed a real answer, understood for the first time in his adult life that he had been removed from his own system. He was not on the map. He was in a place his training had never described. There was no doctrine here. There was only Bruce Lee, standing 4 feet away, waiting. Seconds 42 to 47. The end. Reynaldo stood, slowly. He did not bow. He did not speak. He looked at his own right hand. He opened it. He closed it. He opened it again. He closed it again. He walked to the wall where his leather bag sat. He removed a small notebook from the bag. He returned to the center of the floor. He held the notebook in his left hand. He looked at Bruce. He asked one question, in broken English. 5 words. Show me the angle. Slow. Bruce showed him. 3 times. Slow. After the 3rd demonstration, Bruce walked to the small electric ring near the door. He poured pur tea into 2 clay cups. He carried the cups to a low wooden table near the south window. He sat. He gestured for Reynaldo to sit. Reynaldo sat. The blood on his shoulder had dried into the linen of his shirt. He did not look at it. He set the notebook on the table between them. He opened it to a blank page. They did not speak in any shared language at first. They communicated through diagrams. Bruce drew the angle of arrival, 27 degrees, measured from the line of the incoming shot, with a stick of charcoal pencil on the rice paper of the notebook. He drew the position of the inverted hip. He drew the leverage point at the ankle. He labeled none of the diagrams. He let the lines speak. Reynaldo studied each diagram for 30 seconds before turning the page. After the 4th diagram, Reynaldo set the pencil down. He looked at Bruce's face for a long moment. He gathered the English he had been practicing. He asked the question that had brought him from Rio de Janeiro to Hong Kong. "Is what you do real?" he said, "or only film?" Bruce did not answer immediately. He drank from his cup. He set the cup down. He looked at the diagrams between them, and he looked at the man, across from him, the man with the torn shirt and the blood on his shoulder, and the eyes of a fighter who had just learned that his system had an edge, and he said one sentence. He said it in English, slowly, so that the man across from him could understand every word. "What I do is film. What you do is sport. Neither is the fight. The fight is the moment before either of us moves." Reynaldo wrote the sentence down, in English first, then in Portuguese, beneath it. He looked at the words for a long time. Then he closed the notebook. He stood. He bowed 90 degrees, eyes down. He reached behind his waist, and he removed his black belt. The 4 white stripes were visible against the black cotton. The belt was the one his cousin had given him in 1968. He held the belt out to Bruce. Bruce did not take it. Bruce shook his head, slowly. Then he opened the notebook again, to a new page, and he handed the pencil back across the table. He spoke one more sentence. "Write what just happened, in your own words." Reynaldo took the pencil. He sat back down. He looked at the blank page for a long time. When he wrote slowly, in Portuguese, in a single line of careful script. "Ele estava no chão antes de eu chegar lá." He was on the ground before I arrived there. He turned the notebook around so Bruce could see the words. He pointed to them. He said, in English, "Yes?" Bruce read the Portuguese. He could not have known the language, but he could read the shape of the sentence. Short, declarative, certain. He nodded. The encounter was over at 5:34 p.m. It had begun at 4 p.m. Reynaldo left the building at 5:41. He carried the notebook. He left the 4-striped belt folded on the low table next to the empty teacup. Bruce did not call him back. Outside, on Cumberland Road, the light was beginning to turn the color of brass. Rinaldo walked to Waterloo Road. He did not look back. He returned to the Empress Hotel. He sat on the edge of his bed for 2 hours without moving. Then he opened the notebook. Inside the front cover, written in pencil, in handwriting that was not his own, handwriting that had been added sometime in the 7 minutes Rinaldo had spent in the bathroom rinsing his shoulder before the diagrams began. There were 11 English words. He read them. He read them again. He closed the notebook. He flew home on October 13th. He landed in Rio de Janeiro on the morning of October 14th. He took a taxi to his apartment in Copacabana. He did not go to the academy. He slept for 18 hours. He woke on October 15th at 1 in the afternoon. He showered. The scar on his shoulder had begun to close. He bandaged it. He sat at his small kitchen table and he drank coffee for 2 hours, looking at nothing. He returned to the academy on October 16th. His cousin asked him, in Portuguese, how the trip had been.
Rinaldo said one word: informativa. Informative.
His cousin waited for more. Rinaldo did not provide more. He removed his shirt and put on his training gi. He bowed onto the mat. He trained for 4 hours, harder than he had trained in 2 years, against 3 different black belts. He did not break any of them. He let them work. He noted what they did. He filed what he noted. He did not speak the name Bruce Lee in the academy. He did not speak it in his apartment. He did not speak it on the telephone. He did not speak it for the next 23 years. In November of 1971, he began teaching a new drill. He taught it only to senior students, brown belts and black belts. The drill was a takedown defense, but it was not a defense in the way the Gracie system used the word. It was not a sprawl. It was not a guard pull. It was a deliberate yielding. The defender accepted the takedown, but redirected the angle of arrival on the ground by 27 degrees, placing his body in a position that the man who had taken him down could not anticipate. Rinaldo called the drill o ângulo de hospede, the guest's angle. When his students asked him where he had learned the drill, he told them he had been working on it privately for several years. He did not say where it had come from. He did not mention Hong Kong. He did not mention Cumberland Road. From 1971 to 1982, Rinaldo taught the guest's angle to 34 senior students. None of them knew its origin. They believed, all of them, that it was a Gracie innovation refined privately by a quieter member of the family. Some of them improved it. Some of them modified it. One of them, in 1982, published a small Portuguese manual on transitional defense and attributed the angle to Rinaldo by name. Rinaldo read the manual. He visited the student. He asked the student to remove the attribution from the next printing. The student asked why. Rinaldo said, "It is not mine to be named for." The student removed the attribution. In the second printing of the manual, the angle appears in the chapter on takedown defense, with diagrams, with descriptions, with no name attached to it. That manual is still in circulation in Portuguese language martial arts archives. The chapter is on page 63. There is no footnote. There is no acknowledgement. There is only the angle, drawn precisely, with the 27-degree mark labelled in degrees and the leverage point at the ankle indicated by a small black dot. Rinaldo stopped teaching the drill in 1982. He never explained why he stopped. He continued to train, quietly, in the back rooms of the academy, until his stroke in 1993. He died on March 8, 1994, in a hospital in Rio de Janeiro of complications from the second stroke. He was 55 years old. The notebook from Hong Kong had been in a wooden box under his bed since 1971. The box was opened on March 11, 1994, 3 days after the funeral. Rinaldo's son was 27 years old. He had trained at the academy since he was 6. He had not known his father had a wooden box under his bed. He had not known about Hong Kong. He opened the box in his father's bedroom, alone, on the afternoon of the 11th. Inside the box were 4 objects. There was a small leather bag. There was a black belt with 4 white stripes, folded carefully, with a piece of paper tucked inside the fold that said in his father's handwriting, "Dexay no Hong Kong. Devolvido por correio em Janeiro de 1972. I left it in Hong Kong. Returned by post in January of 1972. There were 6 rice paper diagrams, yellowed with age, showing angles and positions and leverage points that the son recognized immediately as the guest's angle, but drawn by a hand that was not his father's. And there was a notebook. The notebook was brown leather, with a brass clasp. The son opened it carefully. The pages were soft. The diagrams inside were the same diagrams from the rice paper, but copied in his father's hand. Beneath each diagram were notes in Portuguese, times, distances, pressure descriptions, the mechanical specifications of a movement. The son turned to the front cover. Inside the front cover, in pencil, in English handwriting that was small and precise and certain, were 11 words. The system is a map. The territory does not know it. Beneath those 11 words in his father's Portuguese was a single line written in slightly heavier pencil. Eu sou o mapa.
Hey, era o territorio. I am the map. He was the territory.
The son sat with the notebook for 1 hour without moving. He did not show the notebook to his uncle. He did not show it to Carlson, who was still alive. He did not show it to anyone in the family. He took the notebook home with him that night. He placed it in a steel lockbox in his own closet. He kept it there for 14 years. In 2008, he donated the notebook anonymously to a private martial arts archive in São Paulo. The archive is named in only one publicly available document. The notebook is held under restricted access. 3 researchers have been permitted to examine it. One photograph of the front cover circulates among senior BJJ historians, but has never been published in any open forum. The story of Cumberland Road is, in the public record, apocryphal. It is denied by some. It is unknown to most. 3 living members of the extended Gracie family have privately confirmed that they have heard the story from their fathers, but none of them will speak it for the record. The 11 words have never been spoken aloud at a Gracie academy. They have never needed to be, because for 11 years, between 1971 and 1982, in the back rooms of an academy on Figueiredo Magalhães Street in Copacabana, a man named Reinaldo taught 34 senior students a drill called the guest's angle, and every one of those students absorbed, without knowing it, the principle that Bruce Lee had written in the front of a notebook on the afternoon of October 11th, 1971. The system is a map. The territory does not know it. The students taught it to their students. The students of those students teach it now. The angle has spread through the soft tissue of the system. It is not in the curriculum. It is not in the manuals. It is in the bodies of practitioners who learned it from teachers, who learned it from teachers, who learned it from a quieter cousin, who came back from a trip in 1971 with a scar on his right collarbone and a notebook he never opened in front of his family. I want to say something about systems. Every art that has been built across generations is a system. Kung Fu is a system. Jiu-Jitsu is a system. Boxing is a system. Military doctrine is a system. The way a carpenter measures a beam is a system. The way a surgeon makes a first incision is a system. Every discipline that has produced experts has produced a map of how to do the thing the discipline is for. The map is built from thousands of past fights, thousands of past surgeries, thousands of past beams. The map is real. The map is useful. The map is the inheritance of every fighter who has ever stood on a mat, of every student who has ever bowed to a teacher, of every apprentice who has ever asked an older hand to show him how it is done. But the map is not the territory. The map is what we have learned. The territory is what is in front of us, and the territory does not know the map. The territory has not read the map. The territory is not obligated to behave according to the map. The next fight is not on the map. The next surgery is not on the map. The next beam is not on the map. The fighter who arrives on the territory believing his map is complete will be defeated by the fighter who arrived knowing the map ends. This is not a story about a winner and a loser. Ronaldo was not defeated. I was not superior. He arrived with one of the most refined ground systems ever built by human beings. A system that had been refined across 3 generations of a family that had given its lives to the work. I arrived with a smaller body, a recent injury, and the knowledge that no system is the territory. We both learned the same thing. He learned it on the ground in 12 seconds, and he carried it home, and he taught it for 11 years without naming the teacher. That is the highest form of respect a fighter can give another fighter. To take what was learned and to put it into the bodies of the next generation, without claiming it, without naming it, without making it about who taught whom, to let it become part of the soft tissue of the art itself. I learnt it on a wooden floor in Kowloon Tong when I watched a man stand up after I had taken him from his own system, and I watched him reach into his bag for a notebook instead of for an excuse, and I watched him ask me, in 5 words of broken English, to show him the angle slowly so that he could carry it home. There is a photograph in an album in Rio de Janeiro. The man on the left is not smiling. There is a scar on his right collarbone. The caption beneath the photograph, in pencil, in the careful Portuguese handwriting of his mother, says 2 words, voltou diferente. He came back different. He came back with a notebook. He came back with a scar. He came back with 11 English words written in a hand that was not his own. He came back knowing the map ends. That is what I gave him. That is what he gave to 34 students. That is what those 34 students gave to the students after them. That is the only thing worth giving. The map ends. The territory waits.